Good afternoon and welcome everyone. While we all are aware that the AI era has embarked and is moving forward with a maddening speed, an amazing amount of work is happening, including the 8th year of deep learning in Daba to create opportunities for AI education, research, and reach. A significant number of students from Africa are pursuing higher education, employment, research, innovation, PhD, and postdoc positions at esteemed institutions outside of Africa. Faculty, educators, researchers, and academics in Africa are expanding their research agenda. They are influencing, and I can safely say they are even leading African data policies, investing into AI startups and AI nonprofits, and strengthening their relationship with industry. Industry and government in Africa are doing their part. This is an amazing amount of progress for AI in Africa, and it has come a long, long ways. But this same progress is forcing us to ask ourselves some hard questions and deal with some challenging situations. As a significant number of students in Africa are pursuing AI education, the question is, how are we building the capacity and pathways for them to pursue higher education, employment, research, and innovation? As I already mentioned, there are 54 nations in the African Union. How can we dissolve the boundaries of these nations so that the African AI talent and resources can go farther and longer? As we talked about the brain drain of AI talent in Africa, how can we attract that talent back into Africa, nurture it, and retain it so as to build a robust and relevant ecosystem from education to employment to research, innovation, and policies? This year is the first year where faculty engagement is mainstream in deep learning in Daba. And that's not by accident. It's about time, and rightly so, because we strongly believe that academics can lead the path for weaving an AI fabric and harness the talent to shape the AI in Africa, for Africa, by Africans. So the panel today will explore how to harness their collective expertise and experiences in shaping a vibrant and impactful AI ecosystem and research landscape rooted in Africa, serving African priorities. I'm going to make a very, very lame attempt to introduce these panelists, and under these time constraints, I cannot do any justice to their contributions and achievements in the AI in Africa. Dr. Victor Odumuyiwa is an associate professor at the University of Lagos in the Department of Computer Science, where he is also the director of NITDA. He has created a thriving technology ecosystem, bringing academia and industry together. He leads the Machine Intelligence Research Group at the University of Lagos and develops responsible AI for NLP in various applications such as health, education, and cybersecurity, to name a few. Dr. Victor earned his PhD from Lorraine University in France. Give a big round of applause to Dr. Victor. Dr. Njeri Ngaruiya is a faculty lecturer at Strathmore University. She is an information and communication technology for development consultant, specializing in leveraging technology for socio-economic development for the low-resourced settings. She's passionate about user-centered, community-led solutions that address real-world challenges across SDGs. By embedding AI into ICTD for framework, Dr. Ngaruiya advances data-driven decision-making and health equity for sustainable development goals across Africa and larger global south. She earned her PhD from the University of Nairobi in Information Systems. A big round of applause and welcome to Dr. Njeri. Dr. Ulrich Paquet is the director of African Institute of Mathematical Sciences, AIMS. He holds a PhD in machine learning from the University of Cambridge Computer Laboratory. He has worked at several tech companies such as Microsoft, where he co-developed the core Xbox recommender system, and then a startup called Vocal IQ acquired by Apple. He is South African AI/ML veteran and holds a dual position as a research scientist at Google DeepMind. He is the co-founder of Deep Learning Indaba. Welcome, Dr. Ulrich. Dr. Esther Khakata is a full-time lecturer and director of research and postgraduate studies at the School of Computer and Engineering Science at Strathmore University. In December of 2020, she earned her PhD in information technology from Strathmore University. She is the first woman PhD from the School of Computing and Engineering Sciences. Before joining academia, she has gained significant experience in industry as well. She is a mentor in the Women in Cybersecurity at Strathmore University, a member of OSWD and IEEE. She is passionate about mentoring girls and women to venture into the field of computing. Welcome, Dr. Esther. Dr. Paul Amayo. Dr. Paul Amayo is a senior lecturer and principal investigator in the African Robotics Unit at the University of Cape Town. He has broad experience in both hardware and software development over various sectors with primary focus on robotics. He earned his PhD in engineering science from the Oxford Robotics Institute, University of Oxford. As a principal investigator in African robotics, Dr. Paul is looking into the fundamental techno-social questions that impede the adoption of robotics in the African context. Dr. Paul is also a visiting researcher for Google Africa in Nairobi. Welcome, Dr. Paul. It's my absolute privilege and pleasure to be moderating this panel of esteemed panelists. In the next 35 to 40 minutes, we'll have some open conversation kick-started by some questions and hopefully have some time in the end for audience to ask questions as well. As we talked about the brain drain in the continent of Africa, we have some panelists here who have ventured outside for their education and have come back as faculty and researchers in Africa. I would love to know their journey in that path, and we'll start with Dr. Victor, followed by Dr. Ulrich and Paul. Dr. Victor, please.
Yeah, thank you so much, Shruti, for moderating this. And thank you, the organizer of Indaba, for the good job you're doing and for the opportunity to be here. Yeah, so I think the question is about coming back home and what is the motivation. For me, the motivation is more about the impact I can make than the personal progress I can achieve. If I was more focused on my own personal career progress, I would have stayed back. But I have a lot of people that I can impact when I stay here and that can become better than myself and that can become a good force that can change my nation and my continent. So I feel like I will have more impact here than staying over there. Thank you.
Trip down memory lane to think about how one gets where we are. Exactly 23 years ago, I was in Pretoria at the University of Pretoria and wrote down a mission statement as part of a scholarship application. It was a personal mission statement written on physical paper. And in that mission statement, I said that one day I would like to work in a world that bridges academia and the tech industry in Africa. And since then I've gone on, I've really wondered in many places. And now, 23 years later, my life has combined into that mission statement being fulfilled. And so when I think about you as a community, I have one question. I actually would like some people to stand up. Who of you have written down a personal mission statement of what you want to do in 10 years' time, or in 5 years' time, or in 20 years' time, on paper? Just quickly, just stand up. That's my challenge to you. Okay, so my homework at the end of the Indaba for you is to think about a personal mission statement of what you as an African want to contribute to this continent. Maybe not now, but maybe in 10 years' time. And that's going to be like an anchor for you. And you're going to wonder, maybe you'll do a PhD abroad, maybe you're going to do something completely different, but eventually you'll fulfill that mission statement. And if you don't write it down, you'll end up somewhere else.
Yeah, thanks for the question. I think it's also taking me a little bit back. I was 17 when I left home for the first time, so I contributed to Brain Drain before I got my ID, moving to South Africa to do mechatronics engineering. And then when I went to the UK to do my PhD, I always remember the conversations that I had back then when I was motivating myself to go to South Africa. I was like, I'm going to do mechatronics engineering, and I'm going to come back to Kenya, and I'm going to create this robot that will go to Lake Victoria, and is going to remove all the hyacinth, and everybody in my village is going to be happy about it. And then now I found myself kind of 10, 15 years later, working on problems that were really interesting, really engaging, but really far removed from the context that I had set out when I was leaving. And I think that caused me to kind of reflect just at the end of the PhD and think about, okay, what is the way that I can, one, fulfill these personal goals, go towards this developing this technology that I think is really useful, but also still remain locally relevant to people who are more like me, people whose contexts are more like mine. And that's what motivated me back into the University of Cape Town to start up a different type of robotics lab that's looking at the same things, but in a kind of a different lens. And I think it's looking at the reasons why you do certain things and creating an opportunity to do it, or plugging into places where opportunities have been created. And for me, the university was a really good place. I loved the freedom, and I loved the way to kind of research there, and just jumped back in there.
So good morning all. It's actually good afternoon, sorry. So when it comes to the aspect of this specifically is about the talent bit. And one of the things I'm so sure you're actually just asking yourselves, are these guys this selfless? That they just want to just come back to Africa and just do stuff for themselves, or do stuff for the community? Yes, we are selfless. And that's the reason why we actually even have a lot of organizations or even institutions have actually come around. A very good example is AIMS. They're actually doing a lot of good stuff. We're actually just looking at the aspects of PhDs and even aspects of postdoc just within this particular space. So we're saying, instead of just saying being stationary, can you actually be able to actually have this particular brain distribution towards these 52 countries, 54 countries in Africa, and how to actually just ensure that we are not, we're not just being we are not just having this particular challenge just being done really, really well here in Africa, but now the bit is that they go outside. Just today, I want to actually give an example of what I was actually just watching just before I actually came on stage. There's Numeral IoT. A lot of Kenyans might actually be knowing this particular guy, Numeral IoT. This particular guy actually just went out and he just wanted to actually take a break. Very good talent. Took a break, went to the US, and actually saw an issue. There's something known as, it's called approach piracy, where you actually get goods and they're actually being stolen from the porch. And what he actually just thought about is just looking around and said, what do they have? They actually have a lot of oil drums. So what do they do with them? They actually started bringing out a particular, just came up with a prototype. And later on, they say that they can't be allowed to actually have these drums outside. They were able to now to build something that looked better aesthetically, and also it's kind of like in-house. These are brains that are actually going outside. Do you have the same issues in Africa? Do you have distribution issues? Yes, we do. The question is, what is actually happening? All these actually going outside. So can I actually just think about each and every time for us to be sure of building stuff that is for our own terms. And I just love the way Albert puts it. Build with African terms. That can actually be done only when it is us Africans doing it for us, because we know our own realities. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you, Shruti. And thanks a lot to the organizers of the Indaba. I am indeed privileged to be here. This is my first time attending the Deep Learning Indaba. And I have come to connect a lot with my former students and even some of my current students at Strathmore University, where I teach. I have taught for close to 18, 19 years at the university, something that I really do love, yeah? The fact that I produce the talent. I am there to inspire my students. I am there to walk the journey with my students. And the bit about the brain drain, which is actually very much with us, even around the university, when the way I want to look at it is that at times, as academics, we get attracted to what is out there, yeah? I will give an example of my personal story. I got a chance to teach in the US for a whole year. That was in 2023, recently. I got a visiting professor position there, and I taught the American undergraduates, and actually, surprisingly, I was thinking that I was going to teach the undergraduates until I got on campus, and I had to teach the master's students. So what actually occurred to me was a conversation that I had with the director of the School of IT at the University of Cincinnati, and he actually gave me a chance to stay, yeah? And when I looked at the options that I had, of course, when I look at the academics and what they have at the University of Cincinnati in Ohio, that is in Midwest, it was everything that I had ever wanted as an academic, yeah? They had the best in terms of research funding. They had a lot of state support, even to just the minimal amenities, you know, that are actually available. I remember when I taught during the summer, I did bus rides with their metros, all for free, yeah? I did not need to even cough a single dollar in that instance. And those are some of the incentives, when you sit down to look at it, yeah? Actually leads and compels us, academics, to want to go elsewhere, yeah? Because of the nature of support that we receive, because of the nature of collaboration that this university is having with other universities across the world. And this is what we have to sit down and think about, yeah? And in spite of all that was presented to me, I made a decision to come back and teach in Kenya, yeah? Which sounded a bit off. And my major reason as to why I wanted to come back and teach in my home country is so that I could create opportunities for other academics to go and experience the same, yeah? And for me, the bit about going out there, seeing what people have, is something that I always encourage. I always tell my colleagues, go out there and see what people have to offer. And that's the only way we can start trying to change what we have within our African continent. Thank you, Shruti. About the culture of mentorship, and one of the things that I have actually loved over my years in the university as an academic is actually to mentor my students. I mentor my girls, I mentor my boys at the university, and what I always encourage them to do is to be the very best. I remember I had a conversation once with one of my colleagues, and he was asking me, Esther, don't you feel that it's a raw deal for you? You come on board, you produce the best of graduates, and before you notice it, these guys are in industry. I have quite a number of my students around here working with huge companies, yeah? And they earn much, much more than yourself, yeah? And my one response to these questions is always the fact that I derive a lot of joy to be an educator that produces talent for the entire world. I do not need to be the one globe-trotting, yeah? Maybe because of the nature of my personality or the nature of what I want to hold on to, yeah? Because in some of our circumstances, we cannot be both spouses, landing and taking off at the same time, yeah? So it's a decision that I have made. And the bit about mentorship, which goes a long, long way, is the fact that we need to handhold, yeah? In the world of AI, I teach my students software engineering, and if I may give my personal example, I never grew up in the capital of Kenya. I actually went to Kenya on my way to Eldoret. I'm sure Prof knows that, yeah? I was brought up in the rural parts of Kenya, eastern Kenya, a town called Embu. I schooled there, and as fate would have it, you have to go through Nairobi, the capital, for you to get to Eldoret. So that was my first encounter with the city, yeah? So whenever I look at my students and whenever I have to start off the conversation about mentorship with my students, I always want to look at where I have come from. It took me a journey to get to where I am at. And this is one thing that always gives me the reason to wake up every morning, because I know that I am going to encounter girls and boys in my classes who have nobody to show them the way. And if I can be that person who supports that student to actually show them that the world is not as small as we see it in Nairobi or as we see it on news when the news anchors are talking about other parts of the world, that for me is a great motivation. So even in the same conversation around AI, which is actually here with us and it's here to stay, I always get tickled when I listen to some of our academics fighting AI within our universities, yeah? We should be the thought leaders. We should be the people encouraging our students to go the direction of AI. We should be the people, we should be the users. We should be the people who are helping our students get better, in terms of efficiency, because I always tell my students that if I do not encourage you to learn, to use, to actually make this part and parcel of your life, what is going to happen? You get into the job environment, you're too slow, we get rid of you and we get someone else, yeah? So for me, the bit about mentorship, I want to walk the journey with my students so that by the time they hit the job market, they feel that for sure somebody supported them from wherever it is that they came from. Thank you, Shruti.
I think that it's important to kind of see the traditional role of the university is that the knowledge producers. And the university allows you to go fast. You can do things really quickly and do things really slowly. So if you look at government and industry wants things quickly. They want to know what is the best solution. We don't want to go through long R&D processes. We don't want master's graduates who may or may not come up with good research outcomes. Universities actually can de-risk that. So if we look at the ecosystem of this, of how we have government providing funding, which is a very difficult thing in the African context, but needs to be said, and the university kind of opening up and showing industry what the possibilities are. I think that's when we start seeing academia kind of pushing the bounds of research. And I think we've seen a lot of it in Africa. A lot of the work on African languages has been led by researchers. It's not been led by big tech, it's been led by researchers, grassroots researchers, bringing about kind of large systemic changes in how we think about it. And these go into products, they go into tech policy, they go into all of it. So we have a blueprint for how this can work, and we have a blueprint that's been kind of in the last 10 years become highly successful. And I think it's about applying it in different other areas. If you look at medical research, has been a long-standing field. It's really mature. And I think for the AI industry also in Africa, it's getting to the point of real maturity where we have these deep discussions about all of these intersecting parameters. And this now starts leading into government policy, which looks into the future, with university kind of guiding and saying, okay, this might be the path to go through. But it's not just AI researchers. I think that we look at it mostly from kind of the STEM perspective and looking at the technological gains that we can get. But we need kind of sociological gains as well. How does AI impact society? And once we bring all of those together, I think we can create a really good good triangle of collaboration. It's not going to be as smooth all the time, but at least you have the good things flowing from the university flowing to industry, the good things from industry flowing to the university and to government policy as well.
Okay, I think that's a very, very interesting question. I think there are a few different axes in which we could think. The first one is just bureaucracy. AI is a fast-moving field, and within any university, I think every member of faculty could testify, it takes very long to onboard new courses at any traditional university. And so by the time something is very relevant in the field of modern AI, 2, 3, 4 years would have passed before that could be taught at the university. So thinking about more flexible structures to onboard courses from the university's governance point of view, that would be really important. The second one is I don't see a lot of encouragement in the African university ecosystem for lecturers and faculty to seamlessly move between tech and academia and startups back into university. So we could build better mechanisms for that kind of cross-pollination. I'll give you a practical example. Sorry, I sound very negative. I'm not very negative. I'm super positive, but I just want to call out some things here. If you're a member of faculty and you do research, and you decide to take 3 or 4 years out to work in industry, the chances are that you wouldn't get promoted because of a gap in your publication record. There would be 4 or 5 years in which you've not produced papers, even though you've built a good product. So rethinking the incentive schemes for faculty at universities would be really important to bring these two worlds together, tech and academia. Then the next one is, I think it's important for universities to realize that, and faculty, that we are not alone. What I mean by that is that you often find courses taught in different departments in universities with zero sharing of resources. You often have a statistics department, a computer science department, and a mathematics department, all teaching AI, but not the same AI course. And God forbid the same AI course is shared between 2 different universities, because how will the credit alignment and assignment work between those? And so for something that's fast moving as AI, I do think we have to really rethink the way we actually run universities and how we share resources between departments, faculties, and even between different universities. So if there's a really cool AI course run at one university, then I tell my kids caring means sharing and sharing means caring. And that's the one message I want to basically leave for anyone who's a policymaker and thinking about the future of universities. So caring means sharing, and sharing resources means caring.
Maybe I can add from a point of, we're literally moving from rote learning to what now we're actually calling curiosity-driven kind of learning. So in Kenya, we are having apparently a lot of parents in Kenya, they're actually complaining about something known as CBC. Or right now, we're actually calling it CBE, competency-based education. And what is actually happening is it's the practical bit of it that is very essential. So we're not talking about, I have to cram, an exam that I have to cram, and then the next thing is that you actually just come in and just write everything that you have. And after that exam, if you go to the next semester, I usually say the RAM is literally, it's like you literally, when you shut that machine off, that's it. But now here we're talking about how practical are we when actually come to also our own pedagogies as lecturers. We cannot remain traditional as lecturers. We have to actually even change our own pedagogy. So the question is, so what are we giving to students? Are we scared that they're going to actually go to all the LLMs and actually get answers from that? Or are we trying to actually just make them see that they can actually be able to actually have a conversation with these particular LLMs and be able to actually like now learn from, bring something out from it? So rote learning, we're moving away from that to curiosity-driven kind of learning. And this is actually the way that we are going to actually retain a lot when you actually come to the practical bit of it. So the universities in Kenya are actually now planning. We're actually having a strategic plan of these students actually coming in the next like 4 years from now. And the pedagogies are actually just changing. And we are actually doing our very best to actually just make sure that these pedagogies are curiosity-driven, curiosity-driven kind of pedagogies. Yeah.
Thank you. Well, before I answer that question, I will add some things to some of the things mentioned or said earlier. I will throw a challenge here first to some of our friends and colleagues that are from the West and all over the world. I think you may be happy where you are, but I think you need to understand that you can't live a good life if your people back home are not making progress. And I think that's the first point. Once you know that you are an African and you need to do everything to make sure Africa gets it right, anywhere you go, you're going to make sure the resources you have access to, you are using it back to help Africans. Very, very important. I remember a professor in France then that came to help us in Nigeria. And one of the universities, there was only one PhD holder in the Department of Computer Science. He literally helped the department, and after about 10 years, the department was transformed. He was coming every year to run summer schools and did a lot. So what I want to say is brain drain, though they are saying we should not say brain drain again, we should say brain circulation, is not a problem. Everybody is learning from anywhere, everywhere in the world. But the important thing is Africans must remember their root and get back to make sure whatever they are learning, they use it to kind of develop their countries. That is very important. And work together. And I'm very happy for this kind of gathering, which is an example of this kind of building this community and help Africa to move forward. And that also will come to research. If researchers, the work being done by Africans are not getting to that main stage, we have Africans that are out there that are actually publishing very good journals. Why not handhold researchers back home and support them? Because it needs a lot of things. Resources are needed. Right problem definition is needed. So many things will make it possible for us to publish, do good research, and publish. So first of all, selecting the right problem, which is also a problem for most African researchers, selecting the right problem. Then secondly, the resources needed to do the work. And of course, another important thing, when you do a good research, you wrote a paper, you send it out, and they say, come and pay $2,000 as publication fee. It becomes another problem. So by working together, those that have platforms where their university can pay for them, working together with African researchers, then you handhold them, you support them with the resources. I don't so much believe we have to wait for government. Yeah, I believe we have to work together, identify our problem, and solve it together. Thank you.
Thanks. So, as I said earlier, I work in robotics research, and one thing about robotics research is before you start, your capital costs are quite massive. And you had to, starting up a lab, you had to really think about what are the problems that we're going to tackle and how do we invest the money, the small amounts of money that we can make in order to ensure that 5 years, 10 years later, we're able to make the impact that we want to make. And I think it's led to creative thinking. I'd start there. Worked with municipalities, worked with the tech companies, worked with local startups, worked with bigger, medium-sized startups, worked with everybody, worked with other universities. And I think that the thing is that there's so many problems to solve, at least in the space that of the research that I'm in, that people want you to find solutions for them. But they want it within some finite time. They come with their own requirements. And understanding how that could look like, if you want to go to government, you have to go and tell them that this is a 10, 25-year plan with people who've shown that they've been able to do that. And you can go and reach out to other people who've shown that track record and partner with them in order to bring your own ideas to life. So I think the idea of collaborating and maxing out on all opportunities available is the way to get towards this. But I'll go back to one thing, is that it starts off with what is the problem that you're solving. If you have a very clear idea of the problem that you're solving, not about the technical tools that you're going to develop, not about I was a language developer, or I was a robotics scientist, and this is how I'm going to tackle it. If I look at our lab, for instance, we look at wildlife. And from wildlife, we've looked at rehabilitation, which are two completely different things. But these are things that we found along the way just by pursuing that single goal, being agnostic about the methods that we get, being really surveying the local funding landscape, international funding landscape, all funding landscapes, and being very scrappy about it. And I think with that, you'll be able to get a little bit of this, a little bit of that, bring it together with a couple of people, and 5, 10 years down the line, you actually have much more than you thought you would. Yeah.
I want to follow up on what Paul said with regards to robotics being very expensive. There's a lot of possibilities to have close partnerships with industry, like really close and meaningful partnerships with industry. One thing that we could think about changing is the way universities treat intellectual property. Often the model is that there's a wall and a big silo, and industry throws money across the wall, and universities do research, and none of it flows back into industry. So it makes it harder for companies to fund PhD students, for instance, because there's no direct benefit. There's no PhD student that sits in the company, and if something great's developed, they can't capitalize on it. So just being a little bit more liberal about like IP for the greater good would actually go a long way in attracting industry funding from small startups to big companies to university projects.
Thank you. Thank you, Shruti. And one of the ways I feel should actually be contributing to this local funding ecosystem, of course, global partnerships are doing us a lot of good at Strathmore University. Because one of the things I do on a daily basis is actually to be on the lookout in terms of who can work with us. We have really benefited from the fact that, especially for our faculty who have gotten their training within the country, there's always a call, yeah? Why not do your postdoc out there? Yeah, go and see what other people have to offer. And this exchange of ideas goes a long way in terms of trying to change the mindset. And that is where we will realize that the kind of solutions that are being developed, the nature of research that is being done out there is actually something that we can also try and replicate within our home countries. We are in collaboration with universities in the US. We are working with European universities, and our major aspect is actually one, to ensure that our students get to see the other side. As far as research is concerned, we cannot do it alone, because what we have realized is that if we were to do the application for that grant and we do not have European collaborators or we do not have US-based collaborators, we will not get it. And the beauty is, the moment you bring in the partnerships, we have seen that what looked like a mountain for us becomes a small little molehill. So mine is also to encourage, especially academics, let's go out there and let's see what is on offer out there, yeah? For those who are coming from other continents, Europe, the US, with all these funding bodies, try and check who can you collaborate with from the global south, and then let's see what we can do together, because when all is said and done, the impact on education, on healthcare, on agriculture is actually going to be more driven by us who are on this other side, as you help us, as you support us with our research. Thank you.
Thank you very much to the panel, and my name is Nelson Iyumba. I'm from Coventry University Hub. I'm looking after research and innovation. My comment, I don't have a question, I have a comment. It's very quick. And I think it's time we replaced this word brain drain and talked about brain circulation, as our colleague said here. Because brain drain has a very negative connotation, and it might have been applicable 15 or 20 years ago when people left and they never came back. If you ask yourself, why did they leave? Why did they go and not come back, or come back and leave immediately? It's because they were frustrated. And the frustration is they couldn't function at the level that they thought they were trained to be because of the circumstances in their countries. And therefore, some of them who couldn't leave became brains in the drain. You found people with PhDs selling meat, selling chickens, and that was not useful. But now, things are different. We are more interconnected, and the people who live are in a better position to help their countries, as their colleagues said, because they have access to better facilities, they have better networks, and through collaboration, that knowledge can go back. I want to give an example of our colleague in Kenya here. Imagine if he had stayed in Kenya. How could he have achieved what he wanted to achieve at that level? He went to South Africa, he went to UK, he's now in South Africa, but if you ask him, he's collaborating with colleagues in Kenya, and he's doing much more than he would have done if he had not left. Then take an example of this in Daba. I've talked to a number of people here.
Shorten the question, please. We have the time.
I said I'm going to make a comment.
All right.
A question. Yeah.
Shorten it, please.
I've talked to a number of people here. They are from Africa. They're in this Indaba. but they are collaborating with people in Africa. So let's turn the phrase around and talk of brain circulation. This brain drain has a negative connotation, and in my opinion, it's no longer applicable. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Brain circulation.
Hello, I'm from South Africa, but I'm actually studying in the US. And my question is, if we do go and, let's say, study, research, do a startup in the US, Europe, etc., how do we go about, what framework do we use to convince, let's say, our employer or co-founders that there are unique and impactful problems in Africa and that we're not just playing catch-up? Is this even viable? How would you go about convincing others that this is something we need to focus on? Or is the only path to come back to Africa?
Okay, I will try. I would say really it's not an easy thing. Yeah, I have to admit that because our problems are different. So that's the first thing. Our problems are different. And I will also move again to the world of startup. Today in startup, they will tell us that whatever you are doing, make sure it can go global. Yeah. And what I would say is there is a level of maturity needed to be able to kind of understand how you can bring things that relate together within the problems. Yeah, the exact problem may not be the same thing, but the underlying factors may be the same. We're all humans, and we all want to live a good life. So the underlying things are the same, but the level of what we are facing are different. So I think what is needed is the abstraction level to be able to relate and say, hey, in Africa, they have this problem. Let me give you an example. I have a friend that works in telecoms. So they created a solution for Africa for interlands, how they can get network. And it's working fine. And one day he met maybe somebody in America, and they said, wow, this solution can also work for us. Because we have some mountains where people are and they can't get access to the internet. And so now bringing African solution, telecom solution to the US. The underlying problem is the same thing, but the way it happens in different continents or different part of the world is different. So I think that abstraction level, to be able to now say, what is the underlying thing? And show that to those, your partners or your funders in the US, that is what is important. And you can now see how we can connect the two together. Thank you.
Yeah, there's one more question there then.
Okay, thank you very much. Stephen Fashuto from Namibia University of Science and Technology. My question has to do with the data set that is used, maybe if you are given a research grant and after you have successfully implemented the research, you find it difficult to even assess the data set based on some condition attached to the grant you are giving. So I don't know what we are doing as researchers concerning the data set that is gathered in Africa, but we find it difficult to assess it. Either sometimes you find it that it's now in UK Biobank, but Africans that did research on that data set find it difficult to assess those data sets to improve on what has been done, or other researchers want to assess it so that they can do more on that data set. So what are we doing? Because sometimes it's like we are looking more into the grants than what we can still benefit using the data set that has been gathered, instead of spending more money to gather those data sets and allow other people to have access to it. So what are we doing concerning the ethics around these data sets? Thank you.
Yeah, let's take another question here, then we'll answer them together. Sorry, I'm trying to beat up the time slot. Yeah.
Thank you. Sunday Adeola Jagwe is my name. I'm from South Africa, but from Nigeria, in Nigerian origin. First and foremost, I want to add a little to what Prof said about having a cross-border or collaborations. You know, having a cross-border research also help our publication to have more feasibilities. So, and it goes places where you see, when you check your paper that you publish as a single author and you publish another paper as you have many collaborators, you can see the citation that comes on it is mostly it's always high when you have collaborator. That's just my comment on that, but my question goes from Madam. I wonder the possibility from the African university perspective, when you have an academic who want to go for postdoctoral, as you rightly mentioned. And from my experience, maybe I don't know, from Nigeria, where I come from, and from South Africa, from Nigeria, where I originated, and South Africa, where I've been trained, it's always difficult for the management in all these universities to release their staff for postdoctoral service, postdoctoral program. I don't know, maybe it is African problem, or that's how it's cut across, or where I was originated, or where I was trained. Please, shed more light.
All right. Let's answer the two, then we finish up with this lady and another one that's at that corner. The two questions first, and then we go to this lady, and then that guy at the end.
Can I speak about data? Yes. Stephen, thanks for that great question. One of the things that were in my notes to talk about is data. At the end of the 2000s, Europe was really dragging far behind the US in publications in big AI conferences. And there was an initiative called Pascal. It was called Pattern Analysis, Statistical Modeling, and Computational Learning. And it was an EU-funded project that really helped to make Europe draw even with the US in AI publications. And it had a few interesting components, and it touches data. One was very easy mobility between researchers, for them to have microgrants, to have conferences, small workshops, and get people to connect. The second one is that they funded data sets. And in 2007, they funded the Pascal Visual Object Classes dataset. This is now very long, 14 years ago, I think. And this public dataset that is created by the community, that is open to everyone, was one of the key things that drove the computer vision revolution. So I didn't get the details of your question about data, but as a community, it points to us trying to replicate that and creating data sets in Africa that are well curated, that describes the problems that we want to address, and that are open for everyone to use, and that has very clear benchmarks for the AI community. And I think whether someone in the US or Canada or anywhere else does great research on them, that's amazing. That would be a good outcome.
Anybody else?
Okay. Thank you very much, my brother from Nigeria, for raising the concern regarding our postdoc positions, and especially if we are coming from African universities. There's always the notion that we cannot do without you. And my boss, my current dean at the School of Computing, is actually the one person that I am very, very grateful for. After I graduated 2 years after my PhD, and after having been used to so much of reading and a lot that I needed to still want to know and read, I got to a point where I could not just take the teaching anymore. And I told myself I have to get something different that is out of the norm so that I do something with my brain. And I went on LinkedIn, truth be told. I checked, and here was an opportunity that was taking academics for a 1-year period. The fire started hitting me when I started requesting for time out. I went to the dean. The dean did not have a problem. He was like, Esther, it is you who has been given the chance to go and teach. I cannot go and teach computing. My background is in engineering. So there I knew I was okay. Shock on me when I went to the human resource department. What was I told? This is too long. You cannot be out of the university for 1 year. Who is going to be teaching your load? So what do? Esther, you have to resign from the university. We need to hire somebody else to take up your position so that there is no gap whatsoever. And I remember I told the person, yes, I will resign. And I took it. I wrote my resignation letter, and I went to my house and I told my husband, you know what, from today, I actually have 20 working days in Strathmore University, and I am ready to take it. At times, take a risk. Take a risk, yeah? Take a risk and beware that this risk is either going to impart on you positively or negatively. Now, the beauty with some of our postdoc opportunities, like some of our colleagues are getting, are not for a whole year. I was away for a year. You can actually get postdocs that are shorter, 6 months or even 3 months. Go out for that. If they want you to go on unpaid leave, please do that. Because by the time you come back to your institution, there's something about you that will have changed. And that change is the ripple effect that we want to see within our institutions, within our departments, within our schools. And not unless we make that bite, and you actually say that, let whatever comes come, you know, naliwe liwalo, as we say in Nairobi, yeah? Let whatever comes, yeah? And not unless we take that opportunity as it has been presented and look around you. Are people encouraging you? Because the one thing I am very grateful about is the fact that my husband did not curtail me. He told me, you know what, we can survive for 1 year. And of course, I knew my program was in such a way that I left early January. By February, I had my return ticket back home. I was home for a week with my kids. I went back for a month. I came for another 1 month before I started the summer semester. So already 1 month and 1 week, I'm home with my children, yeah? Then I went back for 3 months. And the beauty with the 3 months of summer, I came back for a month. I could teach online. I could go and visit and come back home. So take these opportunities as they come. It is never that serious, yeah? Take the bite, you know, if you need to make a big decision, please go for it. Thank you.
All right, let's finish the 2 questions, then because it's lunchtime and we are already running short of time.
All right, thank you very much.
And clear question, please.
Okay, my name is Nankier Sarah Joseph from the American University of Nigeria. So my question borders around the use of AI in academics. So how do we ensure the ethical use of this AI in order to curb the problem or the issues around plagiarism? Thank you.
So the first thing I will say is we need to understand the world we are in now and where our graduates are going to play. In almost all the software companies in the West, they are telling them to use AI in writing code. They want them to be fast. So I think the first thing is AI literacy. You need to actually train your students on how to use AI ethically, and also have to also make sure that they don't lose their critical thinking. The second thing which I do, and I think it will make a lot of sense, use AI in your classes. Let them open all these GPTs and whatever PTs they are, and you try it. Then I remember in the class I told them, I gave them a problem. Instead of me to give them the code, I said, go and generate the code from ChatGPT. They generated the code, then run it. They started having problems. So we now focus on debugging to understand the concept. In fact, they were very happy. So I didn't take away what they are trying to do from them, but I showed them how they can use the tool and be efficient and still be a good problem solver. So I think that's the way to go. If you like, you can argue and argue. The world is here. AI is here. Everything will go. And that's what they will do when they get to the industry. Let's train them how to use it very well and also make sure that they can critique what AI is telling them. Yeah. And that means what? Your questions, your exams, your assignment, everything will change. You have to redesign the way you evaluate. And that's where most people are having problems. We need to take time and know that we need to redesign evaluation. It's no longer what we used to do. And that is what I think we should be focusing on as academia, redesign evaluation. Thank you.
Any other response?
Maybe the worry also could be the aspect of thesis. As in, like, you are marking a PhD thesis and maybe, or even a master's PhD, undergraduates are very common. And one of the things is that when you're actually just seeing how they've actually written it, you can tell this is the handwriting of ChatGPT. But one of the things is that you want to actually be able to make sure they understand what they're actually writing. So when it comes to the aspect of model training, do they just write? Like now, for example, actually find they actually just talk about F1 score. You're like, okay, what exactly is that? Yeah. So they have to actually just have that particular bit of actually understanding. But now one of the things is that we are very practical, and especially in Strathmore, where it is not about just submitting. It's all about even, can you actually present your work? Can you actually see that you actually just understand what you actually like doing? Because if you do not understand it, question is, why are you actually writing this? And something else people need to actually know, and especially undergraduate students, we are no longer looking at the similarity index. We are going further to actually look at the AI plagiarism. Because, like now, for example, you actually receive a document and then you say, let me just look at the similarity index, it's at 20%. So, but remember, this is generative AI, so that this text does not exist. So it's new. So what actually happens is that now we actually now go into the cheese, we're actually just looking at the AI generated text, we actually get to see the whole of this paragraph actually out. So the bit is that for me, I actually encourage my students is, do you have the foundational knowledge? Even if actually this actually comes out, do you actually understand what it actually just says? Because if you don't understand what it actually says, why am I marking this particular work? So when it comes to the presentation bit of it, we actually just have to have that exchange. Not a bad exchange, a good exchange.
Yes. If there's no other response from you, we'll take the last gentleman at the corner there. We had a question in a seat.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for all. I'm Consolas, biostatistician from Benin Republic. So my question is, given the limited access to high performance computing resources and reliable internet in some African universities, what practical strategy can we adopt in order to ensure students and researchers can still meaningfully contribute to AI research? Thank you.
Okay, I'm not going to ask a question. It's more reflections for everybody. I think this is a great panel. It's been great having more and more faculty or academics being able to speak and talk about the challenges in our spaces. I think one thing for everybody to be cognizant of is institutions are not meant to last forever. All right, what does this mean? Institutions, the university as it is today cannot be the university of 30 years ago. It cannot be the university of 50 years ago. It needs to make sense given the realities that we have. A lot of the feelings, especially through the Indaba, of going around and engaging with faculty members in every country, that's been one of the things, is understanding, yes, we have 54 countries, we have all these different institutions, they have all these different challenges that come with being an academic, a professor in these spaces. And it's for us to understand that for those who do have the opportunity, who've been able to build up programs, for a lot of it, it has been sometimes with the feeling that you do it despite of the university instead of because of the university. And that is unfortunate, because that's also what you're hearing, I think, from the panel of, I had to figure out another way. I had to leave and say, it's fine, I will quit. Right? And we create these support structures outside that keep us going forward. So sometimes, as you are doing this, we also have to ask ourselves, is the institution as it currently is fit for purpose? And it's a very hard question that the institutions themselves do not want to ask. Right. So what this means is that we have to have courage in the face of everything that is. You have to have courage to say, even if the institution is not fit for purpose, I'm going to make decisions that seem that they're crazy, they don't make any sense for all the people, because the way that they're actually measuring themselves is literally 40 years out of date. And that is the thing that is going to be hard. A lot of you are navigating these spaces. You're navigating it as students, you're navigating it as staff, and all these things. I'm saying it's okay. You have institutions are switching it off now. It's okay to be fearful. It's okay to be scared, but do it scared. Do it scared, and that's how then it slowly becomes a trickle. Like, and then it becomes like a whole wave of water that changes everything. We have to do it. If you have to be the pioneers, you have to be the pioneers. We cannot stay away from it, because that is the thing. We look to the West and say like, oh, but they have perfect systems. When you talk to the people who were there, and thanks Ulrich for the example in that part, at the beginning, they also had to do that. They had to go against what was established as the norm. And then that's the thing that we look at today and go like, oh, that's perfect. It wasn't. At the time, they had to go against the grain.
With that comment, last question, and then we will break for lunch.
May I respond?
No, sorry, that guy, the gentleman in the suit, that's the only person I'll give. He had been raising his hand for quite the longest.
Okay, thank you so much. My name is Sangudi from Tanzania. I just wanted to say that we have very brilliant African founders that they really understand the context of African problems. But when you go and pitch your solution maybe to a company or an institution, most of the time they won't take that solution. But what is amazing enough, a similar solution may be developed from Europe or US. When they come to pitch that similar solution, they actually take that. So like how, like academia or in research, how are you promoting this local talent? Or sometimes we find institutions, they have problem. Instead of hiring local talent from their own countries, they look for people or key players from abroad to do the similar solutions that can be done by local talent. So how can we address that to promote the local talent in our countries? Thank you.
I would like to respond to the question about connectivity, especially in the tech industry, where we find some of our children cut off from connection. I will give a scenario because this is something that keeps coming up, and this is in the sense that we sit at the capital of our country, and rarely do we realize that just 50 kilometers away from Nairobi, our children are starving, our children have no electricity, our children go to school without shoes. And this is what has led to some of the community initiatives. Some of our faculty are actually doing grants, and they are calling them Connecting the Unconnected. So for example, you may have central points within a school or within a chief's place or some other safe location that can help the children within that locality get to interact with what technology is all about. We are still dealing with many challenges within our country. The challenge of hunger, the challenge of floods, and at times, some of the monies that is supposed to go into tech is redirected into other things. Education, for example, there was the move about the free laptops for all children within our primary schools. That was merely a promise, yeah? It never saw the light of day, and yet we expect the same children to compete, yeah, very, very much with the children who live in the urban areas within our country. It is not fair. But through initiatives, you and I, you know, as academics, as people in industry, we can partner, yeah? We can sit down to develop curricula that is going to help us think about the child who is not at the heart of the city. This child will only hear about AI because my daughter goes with me to the village, to the countryside, and then my nieces and nephews get to hear that there's something like AI. What can we do? Do I have an old gadget in my house that I can actually help these children so that they start that initial interaction with technology? So these initiatives, we may not need to wait for government to start acting, but through initiatives here and there, we can change the paradigm in this particular way. The other bit about the hiring of the good talent, let's face it, yeah? And the one thing that we have to realize is that even as African academics, we still have the brains. The one thing that I want to encourage any academic, anyone who wants to venture into something out there, please do not allow yourself to be intimidated by the fact that you're Black. I taught American students, and the one thing that I came to learn about the culture in the state where I was in was that that particular city used to be what we call the end of the railway, mwisho wa reli, you know, like we say in Kenya, because all the slaves, all the Black slaves would actually end up in that city when they had nowhere to go. And here I am. This is what maybe some of them have been told over the years, that when you see the Blacks around here, these are the Blacks who came because they had nowhere to go. So what happens? I walk into class the first day, and I notice that something is not right. And all I told my students is, I am here as a visiting faculty. I will be teaching in this university for the next 1 year. If you'd like to read about what I have written, just Google my 2 names, you can see what I have written, and then we engage in the next class. So we do have the talent. We do have the brains. As we collaborate, we make it very clear. What is our contribution as Strathmore? What is your contribution as you come to work with us? And we make it very clear that even as we do our publications, all the members of faculty who have actually worked on that paper should get acknowledged. So we define the rules of engagement from the very initial stages, and we have to stick to that to the very end. Thank you.
All right. At this moment, I would like to hijack the moderation and we wind up. I'll start from the far end with Dr. Paula Amayo, and you closing remarks. Maybe you can pick, as I know Professor wanted to answer something, you can pick in that process and answer that question and give your final remarks. We have only 5 minutes, and I'll start from the end, including Shruti will also give her last remarks. Thank you.
One last thing to kind of take away from me is that we need to redefine the rules of international mobility. Moving from Kenya to South Africa, that's international. If you move from Cape Town to Morocco, you've gone to a complete different culture. And I think opening up opportunities for other people to, within Africa, to move to other different institutions at whatever point in their lives. If you come in as an undergraduate and do a short internship, you come in as a visiting master's student, as a PhD, a postdoc, wherever it is, if we start encouraging more and more of this, we start opening up the choices. And I think when we think about brain drain, one of the things is that people go early because they believe that this is the only choice that they have. They need to get into this other system really early because other options are underemployment and whatnot. But if you open up all of these possibilities at different levels, we can start kind of multiplying the effect and growing our own talent and keeping our own talent. The last thing that I want to say, the question around people who are advocates somewhere else in the world. We have this expression in Kenya, which is chema chajiuza, which means that the good things always sell themselves. So no matter where you are in the world, if you're doing good and you're representing Africa, that's what makes a difference. And continue to do that. That is the empowering the AI industry in Africa. Thank you.
One sentence from Dr. Esther.
One sentence, Ndolo. And actually for my closing remarks, is that the field is free. It's a free space that we are in. See what you can do. See where you can tap into what you really need to work on. The support is there. The big thing about tech is that you can never do it alone. Please be on the lookout who you can work with. And for us, we are collaborating. So if you're looking for that partner that can work with you, you're most welcome. Thank you.
Prof? Yes.
I quickly want to talk about the GPU resourcing question in one second. So Fei Li, who's a very distinguished professor at Stanford, gives this advice to a student. She says, if you pick a research project, don't pick a project that a larger tech company is going to do within a couple of months just because they have more resources. Be very strategic in how you pick your research projects. And this is Fei Li from a well-supported university like Stanford saying that to her students. So I take that, I really do take that to heart in how one picks projects. And at the end of the Stellenbosch Deep Learning Indaba, everyone who was an organizer got a fridge magnet. And the fridge magnet has a slogan from Sir Ernest Rutherford, and we saw it in the Nobel Prize Museum in Stockholm. And the fridge magnet and his words say, we didn't have the money, so we had to think. I thought, wow, that's something that we really wanted to take heart as a community. We're not as well resourced as everyone else, but it presents a huge opportunity to use our brains in a creative way. It forces you to think in ways that no one else has to think because you have fewer resources. It forces you to think creatively like a few other people have to do. So if you don't have the money and the resources, Sir Ernest Rutherford won a Nobel Prize because he was thinking.
Okay, innovation in Africa, yes, it's a paradox. But we need to actually look at the aspect of investing in sovereignty. And maybe, I'm not really sure if Albert Kahira is in, because I'm just going to use there's something he said somewhere, and I'm just going to read it. So he actually talked about the 5 bold calls to think, build, and act in Africa. So innovate on Africa terms, build with the full range of our realities, Talent is not enough. Talent without strategy is just an export. Position Africa in the global AI value chain. And the last bit is infrastructure is essential. Without it, innovation can't run. So let's just build, as Vokosi actually said, let's not fear. Let's build scared. Yeah.
So for me, I would say Africans, let's believe in ourselves. We have that problem. Let's believe in ourselves. We have a lot of problems, we have a lot of challenges, but wherever we have problems or challenges, that's where you have opportunities. Let's believe in ourselves. Let's stop competing. Let's collaborate and solve our problems. We have what it takes. The Africans in the diaspora, if we work together with the Africans that are here locally, we can actually solve our problems. So let's get it done. Thank you.
Thank you so much. On behalf of the Indaba Organizing Committee and the Faculty Engagement Committee, I'd like to thank you all for attending this and ask you to continue this conversation. There will be a QR code that we'll be able to share with you. If you're in a faculty and a researcher and we don't have your data, we'd like to get your contacts so that we can give you more information, and we can also be able to provide a platform for engaging and continue this conversation to make Africa the best, because Africa was great. We had the pyramids, we had the Shaka Zulu, we had Timbuktu. We had one of the best, and we'll be able to continue doing this for the continent and for the people.